The next section is on when and how an IEP, an individualized education program, should be put into place. And when should it be put in place? At the beginning of the year, if your child was on an IEP in the previous year, there should be one in place for the start of the school year. Sometimes when you've been evaluated and your child has a new IEP, how do you go about getting that in place, and when does it need to be in place? If your child transfers from another school district, how does that work? This section explains all those type of situations. And also, how do we put the IEP into place? How do teachers access it? How do we all know what the plan is and all stay on the same page? So those are the two things we'll be talking about in this section. When and how should the individualized education program be put into place? If you have an existing IEP, then at the beginning of each school year, there should be an IEP in place. They're done annually, but a key here that Congress wanted was to ensure that an IEP was in place at the beginning of each year so that a child could get off to a good start. If a new IEP is needed, then a meeting must be held within 30 days, and services in the new IEP should be put in place as soon as possible after the meeting is held. So if your child is identified and there's a multidisciplinary evaluation and it's determined that your child will qualify for services, a meeting must be held within 30 days, and then what the rules and regulations say is the IEP should be put in place as soon as possible. It doesn't really describe how as soon as possible what that means, but it should be as quickly as you can. If it's been a couple weeks and your IEP is still not in place, contact the school and let them know. If your child has an IEP and transfers schools within the state of Nebraska, then a couple things can happen. First of all, services in your current IEP must be provided. That is, the IEP that you bring with you, those services should be provided. This is to kind of create a seamless transition between your old school district within the state of Nebraska and your new school district. Then the new school must either adopt the IEP from the previous school, saying we're going to use that IEP, we like it, we think the services are appropriate, or they can develop a new IEP within 30 days. One or the other, those are their two options. If your child has an IEP and transfers from another state, not the state of Nebraska, services in your current IEP must be provided. Once again, services from your old school district, your old IEP must be provided to create that seamless transition. Then the school can, or rather the school must, conduct an evaluation. They can use the evaluation from the previous out-of-state school if it's appropriate, the team feels that it's appropriate, or they can develop a new IEP upon completion of the evaluation. So they can either do a new evaluation or use the evaluation from the other state, but either way they do it, they need to develop a new IEP within 30 days and then implement services as soon as possible. This is for a transfer from outside the state of Nebraska. Whether it's a new IEP, whether it's a transfer from another school district within the state of Nebraska or a transfer from another state, schools must ensure that all teachers and service providers have access to the IEP. This is important because if they don't have access to the IEP, then services are not put in place, modifications are not put in place, and your child is not successful in the classroom. Each teacher and service provider must be informed of their specific responsibilities in the IEP, and they're informed of any accommodations that are in the IEP, such as for testing or room modifications. And they're also informed of any supports in the IEP. Does the child have an aide that travels with him from class to class to ensure that he makes it from one classroom to the other? All of these things need to be known by the teachers and the service providers, and the school must ensure that they do know those things. And once again, here is the corresponding federal regs and the Nebraska Administrative Code.